Hello, thank you for clicking this video, and I'm so happy that you're joining this journey. I'm Zahid, and I'm a new slash upcoming YouTuber who enjoys reading, and I plan on using my new YouTube platform to promote reading and to also help my sort of avid reading. Yeah. I've always wanted to read, or sort of, help me in becoming an avid reader. And so I am very glad to be doing this, and I'm happy that you're here. So I'm slightly frustrated, because I think it's good to be honest with my viewers. So I recorded a video before I'm recording this video now that was about 30 minutes long of me reading this book in which I'll be talking about next. I'll be talking about it shortly, but I'm very upset because I recorded a very long video in which I was so excited to watch after I was done reading the book. But I'm very upset because the video was blurry. And I want to cry because I felt like I just literally sat here thinking the video was all good, and hopefully this one is good. If it's not, I'm just gonna cry, but I'm gonna hope it is. Because I record my back camera and I can't see, so I'm just gonna hope it is good. So to begin, and let's just get straight to the topic. So I'm currently in a reading culture slash book club at my community college, and this is my first year in college, so I'm very happy to be a part of this reading club. I've always wanted to be a part of this little reading slash book club, so this is very happy to be very exciting for me, to be doing. And we're currently reading Canadian literature. I have never read a Canadian literature or a book by Canadian authors, so it's been very exciting for me to be reading this book, in which I will now be introducing. It is called Moon of the Crusted Snow, and it is a novel written by waubgeshig, and he's a Canadian author who created this book. And I'm just going to read slightly what the book cover sort of has about the background of what the book is about, and then I will get to reading the chapter 1 of this book, as this will be the start of my series of this book. Okay. As one society collapses, another is reborn. With winter looming, a small northern anishinaabe community goes dark. Cut off from power and communication with no foreseeable resolution, only very few residents truly realize the community's shortfalls. When unexpected visitors arrive, escaping the crumbling society to the south, tensions rise and alliances are divided. The harsh winter months pass slowly. The food supply dwindles as the death toll and panic rise. But the greatest threat to the survival of the reserve might come from within the community itself. Wow. And for the writer's note, the author included, "To my son, Jigsby, who shines a bright and beautiful light on our future." So nice. How nice of the author to sort of dedicate this book to his son. Beautiful. That's beautiful. Okay, part 1. Dagwagin, which also translated as autumn in English. So I've sort of read chapter 1 and I made notes, but I'm going to read it to my fellow viewers, and I hope this time it actually captures my face clearly of me reading. Okay, chapter 1. A crack echoed through the boreal landscape, a momentary chaos in the still afternoon air. In the near distance, a large bull moose fell to its side. Even Whitesky stood and looped his rifle around his right shoulder, adjusted his neon orange hat, and began a slow walk over to his kill. The smell of gunpowder briefly dominated the crib's scent of impending winter. His grey boots pushed through the yellowing grass of the glade. Ivan was pleased. He had been out since early morning and had been tracking this particular bull since around noon. The fall hunt was drawing to a close, and he still wanted to put more food away. Food from the south was expensive and never as good or as satisfying as the meat he could bring in himself. By the time Ivan reached the moose moments later, it was dead. Massive antlers propped up its head. The eyes were open, vacant, and the bull's long tongue flopped out onto the grass. Ivan reached into the right pocket of his cargo pants and pulled out a small leather pouch, faded and smooth from years of wear. He brought it up to just below his chest and balanced it in the center of his palm. He ran his thumb across a small beaded pattern in the middle, feeling where the beads were missing in the simple bare design. I'll ask Auntie to repeat this later this fall, he thought. Ivan looked down at the beautiful design, a black bear in a red circle, edged in white. At least half the outer white beads were gone, and there was a bald patch near the bear's head and hind legs. Most of the beaded bear itself remained though. He untied the leather string and pinched some tobacco into his open palm. It came from a plastic pouch of rolling tobacco he'd bought at the trading post on the way out. He'd forgotten to get the dry, untreated tobacco, or sema, from his medicine bundle before leaving the house. The shredded manufactured leaves seemed to gum together. He bounced a tiny heap in his left hand before wrapping his fingers around it. He closed his eyes. Gichi Manidu, he said out loud. Great Spirit, today I say miigwech for the life you have given us. He inhaled deeply and paused. This was still a little new to him. Miigwech for my family and for my community. Miigwech for our health. Chi miigwech for the life you have allowed me to take today. This muzu to feed my family. He still felt a little awkward, saying this prayer of thanks, mostly in English, with only a few Ojibwe words peppered here and there. But it still made him feel good to believe that he was giving back in some way. Ivan expressed thanks for the good life he was trying to lead. He apologized for not being able to pray fluently in his native language and asked for a bountiful fall hunting season for everyone. He promised to keep trying to live in a good way despite the pool of negative influences around him. He finished he finished his prayer with a resounding, solitary miigwech before putting the tobacco on the ground in front of the moose. This was his offering of gratitude to the Creator and Mother Earth for allowing him to take this life. As he stood from the earth, he gave back. He gave back. It was the Anishinaabe way, as he understood it. His head was clear. The adrenaline surge to kill was brief, as was his remorse for taking a life. He even had spent nearly his whole life hunting. His father had first taught him to identify and follow moose tracks in a deep bush around their reserve when he was 5. Now, nearly 20 years later, he was on his own track. He was on his own, tracking his own kill to support his young family. When he was new to the hunt, the sympathy and sadness he felt after pulling the trigger lasted for days. Now, he was a father himself, and necessity overcame reluctance and regret. This is a big fella, he thought. He looked over the bull once more before turning back to where he'd parked his four-wheeler deeper in the bush that morning. He would have to butcher the animal here. It was too big for him to heft onto his ATV's trailer by himself. On some hunts, he would leave his kill on the land overnight and return the next day with help. But he didn't have any tarps or blankets with him to cover up the moose and mask its scent from other predators. And the chill in the air told him that he should move quickly. A deep orange glow coated the northern landscape as the sun began to set, highlighting the deep evergreen of the pine and spruce trees that towered beyond the ridge. As he walked, the sky above became darker blue, and the air was markedly cooler. Overhead, a small formation of geese broke the silence, complaining about their migration south for the season. I thought they were all gone. Had he expected this delayed flock, he would have had his shotgun with him to add to the day's bounty. But he already had a good stock of plucked and halved geese in a freezer at home. It didn't matter that much. He stepped up to the four-wheeler and straddled it, then turned the key in the ignition. The harsh rumbling of the machine racketed across the field, chasing the soothing offbeat cries of the geese. He hadn't expected to find a moose this close to where he'd first stopped just after dawn. He'd covered vast amounts of open terrain and thick bush throughout the day, and he was about to pack it in. But he found a decent spot overlooking the small meadow on the walk back to his vehicle and decided to stop and wait. It had paid off. The four-wheeler flattened the tall grass as Ivan made his way back to the moose. He made a quick inventory of the meat they'd have for the winter. 3 moose, 10 geese, more than 30 fish, which included trout, pickerel, pike, and 4 rabbits, for now. More rabbits would be snared through the winter. It was more than enough for his own family of 4, but he planned to give a lot of meat away. It was a community way. He would share with his parents, his siblings, and their families, and his in-laws, and would save some for others who might run out before winter's end. and not be able to afford the expensive ground beef and chicken thighs that were trucked or flown in from the south. The thought of eating only packed meat, if all that game ran out, made even shudder. Bad moose meat is always better than a good pork chop, his father always said. He even ate southern meats when he had to, but he felt detached from that food. He'd learned to hunt when he was a boy out of tradition, but also necessity. It was harder than buying store-bought meat, but it was more economical and rewarding. Most importantly, hunting, fishing, and living on the land was anishinaabe custom, and even was trying to live in harmony with the traditional ways. The four-wheeler rode up to the dead moose. Ivan turned it off and reached for the green canvas bag strapped to the rack on the back. He pulled out four large game bags for the smaller cut of meat and the innards, then tossed the bags on the ground next to animal and brought out his foldable razor knife. It'd be dark soon, so he had to cut quickly. The bull's sprawl was strong in his nose as he moved in to bring a hind leg to rest against his torso. He began to cut swiftly and methodically. On the inside of the hip, the skin opened easily, exposing the white tenders and purple muscle beneath. Cutting through further, he pressed against the leg with his opposite shoulder, dislocating the hip joint. Once he had severed the hind quarter, Ivan lugged it over the trailer. He felt the burn in his arms and shoulders as he heaved the meat over the edge and onto the plywood base. He did this for each limb, arranging them neatly on the wide trailer bed. Then he cut the meat from the back and neck, gutted what was left, and filled his game bags. He would have liked to have kept the hide intact. If his dad and a couple of his cousins or buddies were with him, they could have loaded the whole moose onto a truck and done all the skinning and cleaning at home. There they could clean and eventually tan the hide to use for drums, moccasins, gloves, and clothing. By the time Ivan was finished, the sun had crept below the horizon and was nearly dark. It wasn't a long trip home, and he knew this bush intimately, but he didn't want Nicole to worry, so he steered his vehicle back to the trail that led to his community. Ivan rode up to the simpler rectangular box of his home. The lights were on in the living room, but the rest of the house was dark. The kids must be in bed, he thought. He pulled up his jacket sleeve to check his watch, but it was well past Megan's and Nagan's bedtime. He would see them in the morning. He backed up the shed that contained a freezer, a refrigerator, a large wooden table, hanging hooks, and everything else he'd needed to finish preparing the moose. It would get cold overnight, but not so much that the meat would freeze. He loaded everything inside, shut the heavy door, and locked it, and headed into the house. Even walked through the front door to unusual silence. The flat-screen television on the living room wall was off. By now, Nicole would usually be watching a sitcom or a crime show. Anin, Ivan announced himself, accentuating the uptick at the end of the word as if to question what was going on. Oh, hey, his partner said from around the corner. You're back. It's so quiet in here, Ethan replied, taking off his heavy outer layer. Yeah, the satellite went out earlier, Nicole said as she stepped into the living room. I don't know what's going on. Wind must have blew it offline or something. That's weird. I thought you'd be laid out on the couch this time of the night, as usual, he teased with a playful smirk. As if. So how was it out there? Got another moose. Right on. Yeah, it took all day. Didn't see nothing out there all morning. I was gonna give up, and I seen him on my way back to the four-wheeler. Had to quarter him out there. Took longer than I thought. We can give some of that to your parents, eh? Yeah, that's what I was thinking. He untied his boots and stepped out of them before moving into the living room in his socks feet. Phone died. Would have called you to say when I'd be home. I figured as much, she said. He even reached for the charger cable that lay on the side table by the couch and plugged it in his phone. He pulled off his black hoodie and threw it over one of the wooden chairs of the modest table set. In the still indoor air, he noticed his hunger. Hey, where's my sugar? Nicole teased, beckoning for her kiss. Oh, he stepped closer to her, his lips in an exaggerated pucker. He placed his hand softly on her hips and gave her a simple kiss. You hungry? She asked. Yeah, I just noticed, he replied. He had finished his last sandwich just before spotting the moose. That chimozu distracted me, I guess. Well, I put a plate in the fridge for you. You just gotta throw it in the microwave. You're lucky the kids saved you some. She nudged him toward the fridge, and he took out the plate, peeling back the tinfoil covering to reveal a sparsely seasoned chicken leg, mashed potatoes, and frozen peas. His stomach growled as he waited for the meal to heat up. Even White Sky and Nicole McLeod had been in each other's lives since childhood. He would trace the path of his own life by his signpost memories of her, and she could do the same. He remembered the first time he saw her, swimming at the lake summer before kindergarten began. She wore a light blue bathing suit, and her wet hair was tied into a long ponytail. Her older sister Danielle was watching her. Nicole was smiling and laughing. They crossed paths again on their first day of kindergarten. She still teased him about the awkward outfit he wore that day. Baggy overalls and a red t-shirt with fading yellow cartoon characters on the front and a bow haircut that made his head look big. He was shy and didn't talk much most of the morning, and shortly before the school day broke at noon, he cried for his mother. He went home with wet cheeks and runny nose. Being somewhat unacquainted at such a young age was unusual in a community as small as theirs. Their parents knew one another but weren't close friends or relatives. His mom and her dad both came from different reserves in the South. Basically, they weren't cousins, and that perhaps destined them to bond as curious friends in elementary school and become a couple by high school. Innocent attraction became intense passion, and despite a year apart when Nicole went to college in the South, it eventually evolved into the loving partnership that bore two beautiful young children. The eldest, Megan, was 5 and had school in the morning. 3-year-old Nagans was still at home with Nicole. The kids were well pushed even through the bush on the hunt. Feeding them always motivated him to see the tasks through. He still hadn't used up all his allotted hunting days from his maintenance job at the community's public works department, so he decided he'd use the morning to finish dressing the moose. The microwave beeps interrupted his thoughts, and he pulled open the door to grab his plate, sitting down across from Nicole, who would come to the table to join him. Well, if the TV's out, looks like you're gonna have to entertain me, he said. We might actually have to have a conversation, she retorted. Her black hair that he loved unbound was pulled back into a tight, practical ponytail, and her brown eyes squinted with her laughter. He chuckled and began to eat, careful not to get any mashed potatoes in his patchy black goatee. I don't remember the last time it was quiet like this in here, she said. He nodded. We should keep the TV and that computer off more often, she continued. Get the kids outside while we can. In the coming weeks, the temperature would drop and the snow would come. Soon after, the lake would freeze over and the snow and ice would be with them for 6 months. Like people in many other northern reserves, they would be isolated by the long, unforgiving season, confined to a small radius around the village that extended only as far as a snowmobile's half-tank of gas. Even finished eating, and his eyes drooped under the weight of his fatigue. He raised his thick black eyebrows to force his eyes open. That moose took a lot out of me. Nicole reached under the narrow table and patted his thigh. You're a good man, she said. You should go to bed. It's another big day tomorrow. My new commies keep saying this winter is gonna be a rough one. And that is the end of chapter 1. Wow. That was quite interesting. And hopefully not too long for whoever's listening. Thank you for sticking around for this long to listen to the entire thing. So like I mentioned earlier, I wrote some notes and just little abbreviations of things I thought was important. So one of the things I thought was important to highlight was the setting. So we know it's sort of around fall / autumn, almost winter. In the beginning, we notice phrases like, "Oh, crisp scent of impending winter." So that was one thing I took note of, and then in the first few paragraphs we became sort of introduced to one of our main characters, Even White Sky, who is a father, and he has 4 kids, a family of 4, not 4 kids, 2 kids actually, but in total there's a family of 4. He has him, his wife / partner Nicole MacLeod, and then he has 2 kids. One is Mike Guns and the other is Nangoons. And then we learn about Even sort of being raised in the Anishinaabe community, a small community in the northern part of Canada, and they're in sort of like a native / indigenous community. They have their own sort of ways, like their customs, and so we're familiar with their customs, such as like hunting, living on the land. Sorry, I think I made a note of that. I wrote slightly go back to, yeah. So we're familiar with the anishinaabe traditions such as hunting, fishing, and living was sort of their way of, giving back. And then also giving back was, one way of their tradition. So this is very interesting. As I'm reading this, I'm sort of thinking about my own Nigerian culture and how my Nigerian culture specifically, I'm Yoruba, so sort of thinking about my own Yoruba tribe and how we have certain customs of our own. And very early on, hunting was not only something that was common within my tribe, but in um, just human existence. I think hunting was one of the early ways people survived, and so it's so interesting to learn that now within this Anishinaabe community that I'm reading about in the book by Waubgeshig, Moon of the Crusted Snow, about their culture, and it's so interesting. And I continue to read, I'm going to pay attention to the different customs and traditions of the Anishinaabe people. And I'm very interested in getting to know more about um, even Whitesky and his partner Nicole McLeod sort of attitudes as the settings change, as certain things happen within the novel. So yes, I will keep you guys on the series. So next time I make a video will be me reading chapter 2 and discussing about it slightly. Once again, thank you so much for being a part of my journey. Thank you for watching this video, and I hope you have a wonderful one. Thank you, and I'm so happy that you're here, and I'm so happy to be doing this.